This week's episode is לעילוי נשמת Rabbi Avrohom Yeshעיה ben Rabbi Ovdיה, Olav Shalom Shtrák's, in honor of his Yahrtzeit, ניסן, dedicated by his son, Rabbi Mנחem מענדל Shichy. Rabbi Chassid Rabbi Avrohom Dovid Posner, from the city of Klimovitch, was from the first Tmimim in Timchet Tmimim. Eventually, he became the Mashpia in Timchet Tmimim in Lubavitch until the year of Tafresh Ayin Ches. The Fidik Rebbe related, in Tafresh Samach, part of the Talmidim in Timchet Tmimim were poyel a lot in regards to the Ma'amorim that my father said. And the Talmid Muvhak, a Chassid, Rabbi Avrohom Dovid, wrote Hanochas on the Ma'amorim. We could understand how chashuv his Hanochas were in the eyes of my father from the fact that my father would go over Rabbi Avrohom Dovid's Hanochas and fix them up. This is also the reason for the fact that in the year of Tafresh Samach, my father barely wrote any Hanochas. And another Fabrengian, the Fidik Rebbe related, describing Simchas Torah Tafresh Samach Aleph, and the Fidik Rebbe says, at that Kufa, learned in the yeshiva Talmid, his name was Avrohom Dovid from Klimovitch. He was from the young Talmidim. He had a strong grasp, and he was a bar sud she'einoi me'abed tipa. Before he even had the basic knowledge and understanding of Chassidus, he would already chazer Baal Peh, the Ma'amorim that my father would say every Shabbos, and he would write Hanochas on the Ma'amorim. That is thanks to his tremendous kisharein. Rabbi Elkan's father, Rabbi Khan, related once, after the Chazara, that they chazan the Maimer in front of the Rebbe Rashab Shabbos morning, because they say there was, that the Rebbe Rashab would say a Maimer Friday night, and the whole night the Chazrim would chazer it, and Shabbos early morning they would go into the room of the Rebbe Rashab to chazer the Maimer in front of the Rebbe Rashab, and the Rebbe Rashab would give them comments and fix up mistakes. So once after the Chazara, Rabbi Avrohom Dovid asked the Rebbe a shaila about the Maimer, and the Rebbe answered. Then he repeated the question again, I guess because he didn't understand the answer, and the Rebbe answered him again. In the meantime, all the Chazrim left the room already, but he still stood in his place, and he repeated the shaila again. So the Rebbe Rashab smiled, and he said, you are like the small oitcha in Halal. When the Rebbe Rashab put out the kuntras at Tefillah, in the first ois, the Rebbe Rashab describes very high levels, like Ava b'ta'anugim, b'mesikus, v'arevus, klois hanefesh. So the Rashbats asked the Rebbe Rashab, for whom did he write this ois? And the Rebbe Rashab answered him, for Avrohom Dovid. In a letter that the Rebbe Rashab once sent to the Fidik Rebbe, when the Rebbe Rashab was out of the country and he was asking the Fidik Rebbe what's going on in Timchet Tmimim, so the Rebbe Rashab writes, Ma na'asa b'dvar ha'bachrim? What is going on with the Bachrim? Im loimdim nigle v'da'ach? Are they learning nigle and chassidus? V'im loimdim kedebai? Are they learning properly? U'ma oisa Avrohom Dovid? And what is Avrohom Dovid doing? Im maspik lo hazman l'tfila v'laTorah? Does he have enough time for his davening and learning? Reb Shmuel Levitin related that Avrohom Dovid would daven standing for many, many hours. During davening, his eyes were open, but he didn't see at all anything that's happening around him. He was able to stand like this for a long, long time, and b'mizbainan, while completely disconnected from worldly matters. Anybody who stood on the side wasn't able to tell that he's deep in his bainanus. The only sign that showed that he's in the middle of his bainanus was the fact that his hat was tilted sideways. Reb Shmuel Levitin also related that Avrohom Dovid would go into the Rebbe Rashab many times to Yechidus and ask questions in deep inyanim Chassidus. In one of those Yechidusen, Rabbi Avrohom Dovid asked the Rebbe Rashab, "Was is Atzilus? What's Atzilus?" And Rabbi Avrohom Dovid himself started by himself to give different explanation to what Atzilus might be. And after each one of those explanations, Rabbi Avrohom Dovid asked the Rebbe Rashab, "Das is Atzilus? Is that Atzilus?" But then, after asking about each one, "Is that Atzilus?" he himself would reply to himself and say, "Nein, das ist nicht Atzilus. That's not Atzilus." And then he will give another explanation. At a certain point, Rabbi Avrohom Dovid described a certain darga, and he said that he himself doesn't even understand that darga. And after he described that darga and said that he doesn't understand that darga, the Rebbe Rashab replied, "Das is Atzilus." Rabbi Yochanan Gordon related, once the Rebbe Rashab sent Rabbi Avrohom Dovid to a certain city that he should be the shoichet in that city. But he didn't stay there for a long time. Then somebody from that city visited Lubavitch, and he went into the Rebbe Rashab for Yechidus. And the Rebbe Rashab asked him, how is Avram Dovid doing? So he answered, he left our city already, because he's afraid of the cow, he's afraid of the ox. When the Rebbe Rashab heard that, his face became very serious, and he replied, whether he's afraid of the animal, that I don't know. But he's definitely afraid of the Eibishter. Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson related, describing Avram Dovid's Yiras Shemayim, that whenever Avram Dovid saw that somebody got a brand new pair of tefillin that were Mehudar, he would secretly go over to the person and ask him to borrow his tefillin to say Shema with them. And that's how every day he would put on a bunch of pairs of tefillin. Also, when he came to Netilas Yadayim for the Seudah, he was very machmir. He would first wash his hands with a kvart, and then with a cup, and then with another vessel, put one vessel into another vessel, all because of the chashash, maybe the previous Netila wasn't proper. Reb Shlomo Chaim Kesselman related that in the later years, when Reb Avram Dovid was sick and weak, and he wasn't able to physically daven for as many hours as he was able to before, he would still daven be'arichos as much as he can. And one of the things that he would do then was that after davening, he would go over to the oivdim after they finish davening, and he will ask them to borrow their tefillin, to say Shema with their tefillin. So once, somebody reported that to the Rebbe Rashab, and the person reporting that to the Rebbe Rashab, this minhag to borrow the oivdim's tefillin, was reporting it in a way of mocking, in a way of trying to say that it's strange. So the Rebbe Rashab replied, Aber der Weile Esther dachnit. But in the meantime, he's not eating, meaning he's doing his kafia by that. Once, when Avram Dovid was farbringing with the Tmimim, he related a story that he read when he was a little boy in a kid's storybook. And he used it as a mashal for the difference between Chassidus and Musar. And the story goes like this. Once, the sun and the wind had an argument. Who is stronger? So they said, okay, let us try. There's a person walking down the street wearing a coat. Let's see which one of us is able to get the person to take off his coat. The wind went first, and it started to blow really strongly. But the stronger the wind blew, the person held onto his clothing even stronger. And the harder it was getting, the stronger it was getting by holding his clothing together. Then it was the sun's turn. The sun started to shine, and it made it very, very hot, until the person started to sweat. And it was getting too hot, and there was nothing left for him to do except for just taking off his coat. And the Nimshal said about Avram Dovid, the clothing is referring to the Yetzer Hara. Musar's way for a person to take off the Yetzer Hara, to take off his clothing, is by describing to him all the punishments that he will get in Geheinoim, why this midah is bad, that midah is bad, the consequences of his behavior. All of that is like a wind blowing. It could get him to take off his coat, but the person could also hold on to his coat even stronger. But Chassidus, the way Chassidus gets the Yetzer Hara off is by bringing him a light and varimkeit into the person, which b'mele melts off the levushim, melts off the Yetzer Hara. מענדel Futefas related that Avram Dovid Posner was so connected to that which he was learning that when he would sometimes fall asleep in the middle of the learning, when he would wake up, unlike a regular person, or if a regular person falls asleep in the middle of learning and he wakes up, he finds the spot where he left off and he reads the last line again, and then he continues. Avram Dovid was so connected to his learning that when he fell asleep and he woke up, he continued exactly from the next word that he was up to. He didn't need to chazer the last line. It was fresh in his mind as if he just read it a second ago. Rabbi Yisrael Jacobson related, in the summer of Tafresh Ayin Zayin, a fire broke out in Lubavitch. It was an early morning hour. I was then in the mikveh with Avram Dovid Posner. When we heard the bell ringing that there is a fire, we ran out of the mikveh and we saw that the smoke is becoming bigger and bigger. And based on the directions of where the smoke was coming from, it looked like it might be coming to the house of Rabbi Avram Dovid. I've never in my life seen Avram Dovid so emotional. He turned to me and he started to beg me from the depth of his heart, Yisrael, come to my house and help me save my shas. Because he had in his house a shas from the print of Vilna. So I ran with him and we saved his svarim and we put them outside in a dry place. And only after that we realized that the fire was going in a different direction. Shlomo Chaim Kesselman related that at a certain point Rabbi Avram Dovid was very sick, and he had lice crawling all over his body, and he was in tremendous pain. Despite all the pain, he never moved because of the pain, and he never sighed. And he once even said about it, anybody who says oi, anybody who sighs, is a nifrod. We'll finish off with a Niggun from the city of where Avram Dovid is from the city of Klimovitch. Ay, 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 ay. Oy mama 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 oy mama mama oy mama 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 oy na na da da ma na da ay 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 da da ma oy mama 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 oy mama 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 ay mama 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 yeda ay ay mama ay ay mama ay ay mama ay dalam ay ay na na ay ay mama ay ay mama yedam naham oy mama 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 tiri ya ya mama mama tiri da ya mama mama oy nam nam tiri ya da 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 ay da 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 tiri da ay da da ay 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 oy nam oy mama na 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 oy ay na 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 tiya oy mama mama oy na ay da na ay na ay na nam ay ay oy nam ay ay oy mama mama tiya na 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 ya oy na mama mama nam oy na mama mama ay ay mama mama oy na ay 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 mama ay ay na na ay na mama ay ay mam ay dam yadam yadam mama yamam Here's another nusach in the second fall. Meaning, instead of repeating the second part twice, that last part, instead of repeating it twice, only once.